Hello from sunny St. Paul, Minnesota. Welcome to your final video critique. Alright, that's probably enough of my radio DJ voice. Hey, it's me, Colin, once again. I just want to say up top, thank you for all your hard work and all that you've done this class. You guys really did a lot of great stuff, and just want to say that I appreciated all that you've done. So, with that out of the way, let's get down to the actual brass tacks of this assignment. Let's go ahead and get rid of this guy. Alright, so let's take a look here. This time around we're going to be looking at Teresa's work, at Jesse's work, at Rachel's work, and at Montague's work. So without any delay, let's jump right on in and take a look at Teresa's work. And the way we're going to do this is we're just going to briefly go through, take a look at them all, come back and sort of talk about some ones that I think are successful, and maybe some ones I think are not successful, and then we will talk about just like how well they work as a like a project. How well do they work together, or do they not work together, or somewhere in between. Gotta say, I think this one's really cool. So I feel like Teresa kind of has two different themes going on in these, which is not to say that I feel like I'm looking at two different projects, more like two different subsets of one unified project, if I could put it that way. So let's again start from the top, and we're just gonna. So she has some stylistic things that are happening here that I think are linked. Kind of the main thing linking all of these. In terms of the most successful images, I would say this. I think this is really nice, although the sign's a little. I'm not even gonna worry about it. I do like how dark this is without seeming overly dark, if that makes sense. I do like that the sky is so dark. I do like that there's like a lot of lower tones, and yet it doesn't feel muddy or underexposed. I like this as a graphic element. I like a lot of what's going on here quite a bit. But I think probably this, in my mind, is the most successful image. And it's interesting, the analogy that keeps coming to my mind is actually a musical one more than a photographic one. I think of a lot of these, especially like this one and the one I was just talking about, as being like a song that's in a minor key. Like it has a different sound that you're not necessarily you don't hear as often, but it is a really cool effect. I feel like you have some kind of minor key images here, if that's not pushing that analogy or too far. There's a lot of, again, lower tones, a lot of great texture, and the sign I think is really cool. I was trying to remember what it said from when I was reading it. It was something about gold and silver. Oops, went the wrong way. I don't remember if I made it billions of dollars of gold and silver or something. Anyway. So yeah, a lot of just really nice images here. The other one that I want to talk about, this I also thought was nice for some of the same reasons. You kind of have, again, the texture, and then her stylistic things that she's doing with that sort of are doing. This is another one that I liked quite a bit. Again, the light, the texture, and something about, like, it's almost like it feels like it has ever so slightly a side-to-side movement like this, like side-to-side blur, and yet it's still pretty sharp. I can't quite put my finger on what it is, or like when you see like a lithograph that's just ever so slightly misregistered, or like it's not entirely aligned. That's a little bit of what I'm getting off of this, but I like it. It's really nice. Same thing here. I'm reminded a little bit too of the work of Ralph Eugene Meatyard, who is a really nice photographer, a really interesting guy. Made some really interesting images back in the 60s and 70s that kind of share some thematic and stylistic things with this work. It's a really strange name, but if you feel like these were successful images, Teresa, I would suggest looking at him. His last name is spelled Meatyard. Ralph Eugene Meatyard. He was actually an optometrist by trade. Has some really interesting images and thoughts on photography. This is actually the one image that, in my mind, doesn't really fit because of the fact that it's fairly straightforward. It's a nice sunset. It's got a great silhouette, but it's not really stylized in the way that the other ones are. But yeah, even though you kind of have the two subgroups, you have sort of the abandoned buildings subgroup and the car subgroup, are sort of my loose labels for them. And then you kind of have like this that sort of ties them together. And to a lesser extent this, which kind of has the mobile, the winged horse there. Yeah, I think that this is also really nice. I love this repeated shape. Yeah, just really excellent work here. And it's a little bit of a return to form with your sort of hot rod pictures, your car pictures, because I know that you did a lot of those in the past. So very nicely done, Teresa. I thought that turned out really well. All right, so next let's look at Jessie's work. And Jessie, hers definitely go together thematically, and the theme will become pretty apparent to you here in just a moment. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. So again, we'll go through these quickly, and then I will sort of come back through and talk about some ones that I thought were noteworthy. So one thing that I like that she did on these was you sort of have the wedding pictures, so you kind of have the idea of the there's certain like things that you expect from wedding pictures. You expect to see the couple together and the rings and whatnot, and you kind of have those, but then you also have this kind of quirkiness to them, which I feel like is reflecting the sort of the style or the quirkiness of this couple. So even like right here, you have kind of a more traditional shot, the hands with the rings and flowers and stuff. But then you also have kind of little touches like this beading, these little kind of jewel things here, and this kind of ring that's sort of reinforcing that idea. You have a nice, I would call this a nice image. He's suffering from a little bit of, I think, frozen face on this guy, but on your groom here, but overall, very nice. This one is, take it or leave it. I like this a lot, but it bugs me a little bit that the horizon is not horizontal. It's a pretty, if you look at just like the composition, I mean, this is, the horizon's right where you want it to be, she's right where you want her to be. Exposure is pretty nice, and yet just that's just like off by too much for me. That tilting is just not quite doing it for me. Kind of a nice portrait of her. This is another cool thing that you kind of see in weddings, and I think that is done well here, is some of these sort of detail shots. You have like the hands. In this case, you also have one of the feet, sort of showing he's got the more traditional tux patent leather shoes, where she's got kind of the fun high heels. The only thing I do to change this is maybe just crop it off a little bit at the bottom. Alright, this I think is definitely your best image of the group, probably one of your best images I've seen from you. This is just really lovely. As I've previously stated more than once, I'm not a huge fan in general of the selective desaturation, but on here I think it's really effective. I like the roses. I think they really work well here. The ribbon, the same thing. Um, so you've kind of just framed this really nicely. You have this great sort of shimmery quality of this, and you have this. I think that's just a really lovely image. Even something small like her hair kind of coming down here. I think you really nailed this one. It's really, really lovely, and I bet that your bride also really likes that. Let me kind of have these two versions here. I think I like this version more, although again, this kind of has that quirky thing going. I feel like maybe these could be a little bit bigger and then a little bit more slightly blended in better. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like some elements of that. This is okay. I feel like maybe just I mean, I like some things. I would probably crop it in a little bit from the top, get a little bit tighter composition on it, and maybe just change her expression slightly. There still is a lot of really nice things happening here. I just feel like that one needs to be tweaked a little bit. In terms of these as a project, I definitely think that it, obviously stylistically and thematically, really pretty tight. When you have a kind of an event like this to sort of structure them around, they do tend to be a lot tighter. But yeah, nice job, Jesse. All right, who is next? Rachel is next. Let's take a look at Rachel's work. And Rachel kind of she has a series of portraits here. And let's take a look at those. So we have. This keeps wanting to do that. Again, we'll just kind of go through these and then come back and talk about some successful ones and some less successful ones here. So I want to talk about what I think is the most successful one here, which is this image. I feel like I've seen this before. I think maybe you turned this in for one of the other assignments. I feel like. Yeah, a lot of nice things here. I love this sort of the maroon and the yellow. I love the colors are really nice. All the colors in this are really nice. Her hair sort of really nicely frames this side of her head. And you kind of have a similar thing going on here between like this solid color and this accent color that you have here with the sort of maroony, magenta-y background contrasted with this yellow here. So you kind of have a cool, like a stylistic echo there. Really nice just portrait of her, you can probably chop it off a little bit from the top, just to make it a little bit of a tighter composition, but yeah, I think that's a pretty nice portrait. As is that. My only problem with this is that it's just slightly blown out. I feel like we're losing detail in certain areas, like kind of here and kind of here. But again, you sort of have this nice. Her hair is really nicely framing it. And it's kind of like you kind of have the shirt, and it goes into the hair, brings back around to the shirt again. So you kind of have this cool framing contrast thing. You kind of have like it's almost like a figure eight or an hourglass kind of shape here. That's nice. Very nice texture on the background. This one I also like quite a bit for similar reasons. Again, I'd probably chop it a little bit right here just to make a slightly better, slightly tighter composition. And then the other one I wanted to talk about was this one. Now I remember this one from your, I think it was week 5 assignment 4 images. I don't know if it's the same one or just the same shoot as that, but yeah, I liked how this came out. I think her eyes are really, um, they're really exposed very well and framed very nicely by her face. Um, Her face, you're losing a little bit of detail in some of these areas. But if it's a choice between getting the right exposure on her eyes and have your face kind of lose some detail, or having your face be just right and kind of lose the eyes a little bit, have them go too dark, I would always choose the eyes. But I do think that there's a way to kind of selectively come in, do some like local correction, and just like shade in a little bit here, darken a little bit here to sort of define that edge of her nose, and maybe a little bit here, and kind of in here, just to bring back a little bit of that detail in her face. I think that would really sort of make this a nice portrait. So, oh, and I just want to say about Rachel's, I thought that was pretty clear what that they felt like they went together, and what the sort of thing was that was tying them together. And last but not least, we have Montague's work here. And these are definitely, I wouldn't say stylistically linked, these are definitely thematically linked. You have a lot of different sort of formats in terms of wide, narrow, whatnot, but they all are sort of houses on the lake. So you definitely have a common theme of like the outdoors, of kind of a similar environment where they were shot. And I think that in a lot of these, in the best of these ones, you have a sort of nostalgia, or sort of a feeling of like remembering childhood, or sort of coming back to like a peaceful place, that I think is, pardon me, really effective. I think maybe your best image of the group is actually this one right here. I'm reminded a little bit of the work of David Hilliard, who is a professor right now who's teaching at, I believe, Yale, one of the really super nice photography programs. And he has the same kind of thing, except he doesn't really do like the sort of panorama. He does more of like a triptych. So like this would be one entire frame and be separated, and then this would be one entire frame that was separated from this. And it would sort of, kind of play with the relationship between these. But he has like a sort of similar setting to a lot of his images, and a similar sort of sense of, a foreground, sort of foreground-background relationship that you have here. So I think that's probably your most successful one. I also like this quite a bit for some of the same reasons. That's interesting, kind of this in relationship to the background, sort of progression back into space. And one other one that I really wanted to talk about here was actually this one with the little girl in it. I think that is another really successful one. I think it could be. I think you probably needed to adjust a little bit more for the exposure on it. Let's see if I can get it on screen. Okay. Sorry, you guys. This computer it does not want to go very fast. Okay, so I would say you kind of metered for this. What you really wanted to do is meter for this and let this kind of just get a little lighter. Having said that, it does kind of reinforce that idea that I was talking about earlier of this being a nostalgic place, or a place of childhood. Sort of returning to that. The girl there does sort of reinforce that. But I do think, the one that earlier is probably your most successful one. Anyway, nice work, guys. So, to wrap it all up, I just wanted to say that, again, I thought you did some really nice work in the class, and I just want to say that I hope that you guys all have a lot of success. It's been a pleasure being your instructor, teaching you stuff, and hopefully you've learned a lot, and yeah, I just wish you nothing but success in your future endeavors. All right, well, thank you for all your hard work.